Hello from the ceiling. How's the weather down there? Just kidding. All right. I'm Chris Murdoch from Revelation and Restoration Academy of Music and Drama. Special thanks to Jesus for this wonderful Christmas time of year and for what it means. And special thanks to you for coming along for this special edition online video lesson on a wonderful classic Christmas carol. So, we're going to do this multi-level. First of all, we're going to start out with the melody. And if you're at a more advanced level, starting out at the lower level and building is just like a foundation and then building the house on it. So here's the song Silent Night. First, just melody. So, what can we do to spruce this up and take it to another level? Well, first of all, make sure we know it by melody. And then, of course, you can back this up and watch what I do for that if you don't already know the melody. Plus, I will include a link showing the melody as note names and as sheet music. Always learning by rote isn't always a good thing. What am I doing now? I'm playing the same thing, but I'm adding one harmony note under it. Now, why am I doing E and G, not F and G, or D and G? Well, for one thing, a third, which is like from G to E, or E up to G, skipping one letter name in between, you play one, you skip one, and you play one, that's why it's called a third, is a nice sounding interval in music. But is it what we always want to use? No. Look, when we got to the C on All is Bright, if we would have used a third below the C, it would have sounded weird in the context, even though the A and the C sound good together. Listen. Doesn't that sound a little odd? Why is that? How did I know in that case it would be better to do the C and the G? A fourth down from the C to the G? Well, it's because there are implied chords. These are the chords I would be playing if I was playing chords with the melody, which we will get to. We will get to playing the chords with the melody as well. But the chord in force here would be the C chord. C, E, and G. So if I did C and A, the melody note would be part of the chord. The C from C, E, G. But the A would not be. So I changed the A to a G, so it would be part of the chord. We're back to thirds now. Ooh, there's a fourth again because C is the chord in fourths. But then back to thirds because we've got the E note in the melody, and a third below that, the C, is part of the chord. We've got the C chord, C, E, G. Ooh! Twice we went back to the fourths. Why did we go back to a fourth here? Because C is still the chord in fourths. C, E, G. So if we did C and A, that A wouldn't be part of the chord. And then why did we go G and D? A fourth down from G instead of a third down, which would be E. Because the chord in fourths now is G. G, B, D. The E is not part of that, but the D is. We could say the chord in fourths is G, or we could even say G7, G, B, D, F. In fact, when we're adding the chords along with the melody later, we'll probably use the G7 chord. And then we end on a third again here. Why? Because, as is usually the case when we're ending a song in C, the chord in fourths at the end is the C chord. Usually whatever key a song is in, the chord in fourths at the end of the song will be the chord of that key. It's called the tonic chord of that key. Yeah, so we have the C down to the G, a fourth, because the G is part of the C, E, G, the C chord. So I'm going to include sheet music for this as well. This is what it sounds like when we put it all together. But there's more to come. Now, that G and C at the end sounds a little hollow, but it sounds more finished than if we had the A and the C. So, again, that's because usually whatever key a song is in, and this is in the key of C major, we usually end on the chord, the tonic chord, the chord that has the same name as the key, C major. So yeah, A and C would be using the A that's not the A, which is not part of that, and G and C would be using the G, which is. But this is one reason. The fact that it sounds a little hollow there is one reason that it's great to have something to go with that in the left hand. So what we could do then would be chord roots and fifths. what's the root and what's the fifth with the with the C chord? Well, C is the root or the first, E is the third, G is the fifth. What we can do then is we can have the left hand start on the chord root, and if the chord stays the same in the next measure, we can go down to the fifth, or we can go up to the fifth. We can go and at this point the chord in fourth changes to G. So we've got the melody and one harmony note in the right hand, but we've got the chord root in the left hand, and then there's the fifth, because G, B, D is the G chord, so first, third, fifth, root, third, fifth. We could go up to the fifth, or we could go down to the fifth. I want to go down to the fifth because that puts me right by that low C, and the chord is about to change back to C. We went back to the C chord, and so the left hand was playing C and G. Now, the chord in fourth changes to F. So the root is F, the third is A, the fifth is C. We can go up to C, we can go down to C. I think we'll go down to C, because that puts us right there at that C that we were using before when the chord of C was in fourth, and the chord of C is coming back into fourth now. So again, it's like that. And I will be putting this in sheet music form as well. So it does that twice, and then, like I said, the chord after that is the chord in fourth after that on Sleep in Heavenly Peace. The first part of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, the Sleep in Heavenly, is the G7 chord. So the root is here, and the fifth is here or here. G is the root, B is the third, and D is the fifth. D here or D here. Yes. So I think I'll go down to that D, because that puts us right next to that C where we were for when it comes back to the C chord now. So I'll do that again. Of course, on peace, and the second, sleep in, it's on the C chord. But now, that's interesting, because if we were staying in the C chord, the fifth would be the G. But, we're going to the G chord, G7 actually, and the root is that G. And then back to that C. It doesn't sound quite as odd as when we had the G on the bottom, perhaps, but it sounds a little hollower. So if we want, we can add the other note of the chord, the E, because remember the C chord is C, E, G. So if we play all that from beginning to end, it sounds like kind of roll that chord. When we don't hit all the notes at the time, but we go from bottom to top or top to bottom, we call that rolling the chord. We can even do the top and bottom notes and then roll the middle notes. Or the top note and then roll the other notes, or the bottom note. But we don't want to do that because the top note is the melody. We could even we could change the order. Alright, so what was this I said earlier about putting the melody with chords? Well, at the end, remember I added that E because without it, the chord felt kind of hollow. There were some times throughout the song when we had that. We had the first and fifth of the chord, but not the third. And that always sounds a little hollow. Sometimes we want that, sometimes we don't. But what we can do now is we can play the chord in the left hand, and we can play the melody in the right hand. Now, so far, I'm just playing the chord blocked, all notes together. But we could do that. We could do that. We could do a lot of different things. We could break up the chord in many different ways. We could block two notes together and play the third one separately. We could do so many different patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to play different patterns throughout so you can get an idea. We can also, especially if it's the second measure on a chord, we can add some passing tones. That F is called a passing tone because it's not part of the chord, but I'm passing between two chord tones, the G and the E. That D is called a passing tone because it's not part of the chord, but I'm passing between the E and the C. So I might add some passing tones too. So far, I've done what we call the Alberti bass pattern. Bottom, top, middle, top. That's something Alberti did in a lot of his compositions, and so it's named after him. I think the pattern is a lot more famous than the composer. He's not one of the most famous ones. But anyway, now I'm going to incorporate some different patterns. But the point is still to show you that there can be different patterns, but that you're putting the chords in the left hand with the melody in the right hand. Notice I can go bottom to top or top to bottom with the chords. I can even do kind of a waltz pattern. Boom, pa, pa, bottom note, middle and top, middle and top. By the way, the reason I'm saying bottom note, middle and top instead of root, third and fifth is because we would do this bottom, middle and top, even if we were inverting the chord. There's an inversion of this C major chord. If we have the E on the bottom, but we still have the G and the C, then it's still C, E, G, just in a different stacking order. And if I was playing it as a waltz, I'd still play bottom, middle, and top, middle, and top. Anyway, let's see. By the way, the seventh of the G chord, because the G chord is G, B, D, and the G7th chord is G, B, D, F, the seventh is supplied in the melody when we get to the word heavenly, the first syllable of the word heavenly. But we can make that seventh stronger if we want to put the entire seventh chord in the left hand. Notice I used a non-standard fingering when first changing the chord, but then I went back to the regular fingering. And then if I'm going way up here, that means I'd better drop back down. Because if I stayed up here with the left hand and right hand would get in each other's way. Now I could just drop back down all of a sudden. Peace, sleep, or peace, sleep in. I could take the chord down, C, G, E, C. Now I inverted that G chord, G7 chord rather. I left out the B, just to make it a little easier. But I went from the C chord, C, and then the G, E, C, the notes of the C chord, and then I just went to, remember the G7 chord is G, B, D, F. So if I do D, F, G, F, G, I've got all the notes except the B. There, I did a broken chord, and I did some passing tones. So there are some ideas. And of course, you can also just sing it and not worry about playing the melody and play chords in the right hand and an accompaniment pattern in the left hand. For example, silent night, holy night. See, most of what I'm playing in the right hand is from the chords, but I'm also not afraid to use inversions. C, E, G, root position. E, G, C, first inversion. G, C, E, second inversion of the same chord, the C chord. There's always still a C, an E, and a G. A C, an E, and a G. Silent night. holy night. There are some passing tones there. Holy night. I can add a little bit of melody there if I want. All is calm. I can use the regular G major. All is calm. Or the G7. All is bright round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild. Sleep. Oh, now I'm kind of breaking the chord up between the hands. The right hand has all the notes of the chord except the G. If we just heard that, it would be an inversion of the B diminished. But the left hand supplies the G. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. So I used mostly notes that were part of the chord, and the right hand stuck a little closer most of the time with the chord than the left hand did, perhaps, or at least did less breaking up of the chord, perhaps. But the left hand was at least, if not doing more at breaking up the chord, was at least doing more at adding passing tones. It seemed like it anyway. They both did some. And so you can do a lot of different things if you're singing or somebody else is singing and it's somebody who is a good enough singer that they don't need to hear the melody while they're singing. You can do a lot of things with just the chords in one hand and some kind of accompaniment pattern based on the chords in the other hand. So, again, I'll include links with this video to, number one, just the melody with sheet music. Number two, just the melody as note or as letter names, because those who want to stay with just the melody may or may not know how to read music yet on the staff, although I recommend learning it. And I am open for new students. Then there will be the melody with one harmony note under it, as sheet music only. Then there will be the chords. This will actually be combined with some of the above. I will include chord symbols when I'm doing the melody and the melody with the one harmony note as sheet music. I'll include chord symbols that will tell you what chord goes with them. So that way you can play the left-hand chords, or if you want to abandon the melody on the piano and just sing it or have somebody sing it and play the chords in the right hand and an accompaniment pattern in the left hand, yeah, you can do that too, because you'll know what the chords are. All right, and for those who don't know what a C major chord is, or a G chord, G major, or a G7 chord, which many of you do, many of you don't, I will also include what those chords are. I will include that the C chord is C, E, G, that the G chord is G, B, D, that the G7 chord is G, B, D, F. By the way, if we just say C chord or G chord, and we don't say major or minor or augmented or diminished or any of the other kinds of chords, we mean major by default. All right. Now, like I said, I am taking on students. I am open to take on students. So if you're interested in a free online trial lesson or interested in learning about the possibility of lessons in the Versailles, Missouri and Sedalia, Missouri area, let me know at revelation.and.restoration at gmail.com. And I will put that link in the description as well. Okay. It was good to see you for this video lesson, this special edition for Christmas. Happy birthday to Jesus, and blessings to you.